All right, so this is MS Office Hours Community Call, and today is January 17th. Our focus today is really around driving adoption. We're going to use Teams as our primary model to drive adoption as we talk about this. The reason why we do that is because Teams itself incorporates so many of the other components of Office 365 that if we go through this process, we ultimately end up driving significant adoption of the entire stack. And so for many of you, that's part of your responsibility, or at least part of what you feel obligated to be able to report on and understand in order to justify the expenses, both in the service fees that you pay to Microsoft as part of your EES agreement, perhaps, as well as the amount of time and effort that you and your staff are putting into rolling out and and managing these services, not to mention end user training. And in particular, what we want to be able to do is make sure that you guys know what resources are available to you to really improve the training that you can provide to end users. What are the materials you can use to even let them know about the new things that are available to them as they come about or as you're ready to roll them out? How do you gauge what the current adoption is before you do a major initiative, like maybe a training initiative to faculty in a particular college or a particular high school, whatever that case might be, and then be able to gauge that same usage later and determine what the impact was. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about. This is a whole new series that we're going to dive deeper into. So today will be kind of a high level surface touch on all of those types of things. The first thing that I have up here is really a sort of traditional usage report around all of Office 365. So this is, in fact, when you go to the Admin Center reports usage, you can see all the major productivity workloads that you see here: email, OneDrive, SharePoint, Skype for Business, and Teams, right? As well as Yammer and any Office 365 Pro Plus activations. Demo tenant, so it's fairly lame. If you do click on this Power BI report, you'll see a whole lot more detail. Again, demo tenant, so mine aren't near as impressive as what yours will be. But when you come in here, you can get more detailed views on each of those workloads and what users are doing, and certainly click on these to drill down into them. So these are great, but this is not our focus for today. It turns out we have some other usage reports for Teams that we're going to dive into. And so I'm going to start there, and then I'll get you guys some other resources that you can use. By the way, the link directly, or the article that talks about this particular usage report, as well as the ones I'm about to show you, are listed in our team in this particular meeting in the chat that's there. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. But there is documentation, and I have provided those links to you in this chat window. And so what we're going to do is come take a look for Teams, in particular over here at the new Teams and Skype Admin Center. For anybody who's watching this recording later and weren't on the call earlier, that Admin Center might have looked a little bit quirky or new or different. That's because I turned on the preview of the new Admin Center in a first release tenant. So yours may not have changed, and that's okay. Hey, somebody just came off mute or signed in, most likely from a phone. So if you just joined us from any kind of a phone, please make sure you mute your microphone. Thank you. Appreciate that. Awesome. And then what we have down here is the new Teams and Skype Admin Center. And inside of here, we have this analytics and reports, which is a new section that's come into here. And you're going to get some views and details that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So we can choose what it is we're looking for: Teams user activity, device usage, or Teams usage itself. So I'm going to start with user activity. I can choose a date range. I'll choose the last 28 days. These are going to be underwhelming because I have no actual data in my tenant, which is why I gave you guys those links, which I'll pull up here real quick, and we'll work from that. So when I come here and go up in our chat here, this meeting to the very top, I will see these. So here is the usage report. Load in just a second. So you guys all saw how I got there. Again, I was in the Admin Center. I went under the additional Admin Centers and chose Teams and Skype, and then under Analytics and Usage, and then that's where I find this Microsoft Teams usage report. And so as you can see here, it lets me see so what team it is, what the total active users, how many active users there are, guests, how many guests are in it, how many messages there are, and the number of active channels. Again, that is essentially equivalent to what we have right here, except I have no information in mind. You can do the same thing down here that you'll be able to do on the other three that I'm going to show you, which is to figure out how best to interpret this report. And so it kind of tells you in detail what these are. And so in reference, you can see that there are little numbers everywhere, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and or through 7, and each of those is explained down here. It's pretty simple stuff in that it lets you choose between 7 or 28 days, and then what's the latency. So know that each of these reports has a 24 to 48 hour latency from when the activity occurred or it shows up in the report. And then you can hover over any of those points in the graph and get details on them. And then you can also filter that so that if you want to look at specific parts, much like we were talking about before, where I can come in here and hit this little button and say, hey, there's certain things I want to turn on or off. I don't see the filter. That might be because I don't have any actual data in mind. Also, by turning these on or off is more what they were thinking of, to say, okay, which things do I want to show or not show? So that makes some sense. So you guys kind of get the gist, pretty basic reporting, but you can go in and take a look at that. There's also a report on user activity, which is here. So now I can drill into specific users and find out how many one-on-one calls they had, channel messages, chat messages, and the date of their last activity to find out how active somebody may be inside of here. And so again, you can find the details on how to interpret that exactly. And finally, the last one. Hey, good night. No, just kidding. Please make sure you mute yourself unless you were telling me good night. In which case, hey, seriously, good night. Microsoft Teams usage report. So this one gets into the device usage itself, and we'll tell you whether they're on Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, or all four, and the date of last usage, and kind of give you a comparison of what types of devices are being used to access Teams in your tenant. So I understand people are going to go, hey, this is just not as thorough as I thought. I wanted to be able to do this, or I wanted to be able to do that, or I wish I had more data. What if I wanted more than 28 days? All those things. Wait, is there another series we're working on that has to do with automation? Maybe we could use that Graph API thing that Preston was rambling on about last Thursday to actually pull all of that usage data. Ooh. Oh, I could use Power BI even potentially to pull some of this stuff, but I can use Flow or I can write a script to do that. But it turns out there are some great videos from some colleagues of mine, if you're interested in this, that showed how to wire up Microsoft Graph to Power BI via Flow to make this work. So look for a series, a web series called Guy in a Cube. One of those guys you may have talked with before, Patrick LeBlanc, who's on the education team. The guy's a genius. But the two guys who do Guy in a Cube are brilliant, and there is a video that they have on how to wire up Power BI to get data directly from the Microsoft Graph. And so you can then build your own reports from that. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere down the road in our automation series that we call a Work Smart series, that's something we may well dive into, is how to build custom reports out of the Microsoft Graph into Power BI and do a parallel work process that could dump that same data into, say, a SQL database or something else. So some neat things we'll take a look at possibly in the future, but wanted to call that all out for you. So this has been, how do I find out what my current usage is? So I want to pause for a minute and say, why do we care? Why did Preston make such a big deal about being able to find usage reports? I knew those were in there, but I don't really look at them. And it's because of this. If you're going to put significant effort into trying to help people actually be able to figure out how to adopt these things, help people be able to learn more about how just to use them, whatever initiative you have, or maybe it's just you're getting ready to turn something new on, you want to establish a baseline first. So come and look and see what's the 7-day and the 28-day average across that group, and then be able to come back afterwards and compare that, right? So I think that is vital to being able to do this. And so when I do something like run report here, I have a print chart, but I should have, okay, that's a little frustrating. Inside of here, I do not have apparently the ability to download the data as I thought I would directly from here. That's okay. All is not lost. Back in the actual admin center, the usage reports that are there, Teams is listed there, as is much of this. There are additional reports, by the way, and if you have calling and all of that, that you can see as well in Teams. I don't have any of that configured, so I didn't bring it up, and most of you don't actually have Teams voice up and running today. So maybe that's something we'll talk about later, bring in Bob or somebody else. But today, when you go to reports and usage, Teams is one of the core workloads discussed here. So you can see that data is available for up to 180 days. And if we drill into it, I know I didn't wait for it to load. I happen to know right where that was in there, although I got it wrong. So for me, Teams is not showing up in here. Dang it. So maybe because I have absolutely no usage data in it. But I
was there. Go up. It should have been there.
Yeah, it's Microsoft Teams. Thank you. Sometimes I'm my own best enemy. Worst enemy, whichever. Okay, so from here, I can actually export this. So I have user details, again, just like we saw when I was looking at this before we started the recording. And I say this, I can go and add additional columns to this if I would like. Yes, I understand that this database does not have display name, but once you have this out in Excel, it's super easy to use the VLOOKUP command to utilize username to tie this with some other Excel spreadsheet that would then give you a username. So for instance, if you exported the email, the exchange report, the usage report, which has the ability to include display name, you could then use Excel to use the VLOOKUP formula to actually say anywhere that these two usernames match, give me the display name from the other one. So there's some easy things that you can do to manipulate Excel to bring that stuff in, and then you can export this and dive through it in more detail. Why do I talk about all that? It's because if I'm going to roll a program out to a subset of users, I want to be able to identify those users. And so if I'm going to roll this all out to people who are a member of X group, or maybe it's through my student information system, I can do an export. As long as I can include this username in there as a unique identifier, now I can use the sort of VLOOKUP to include their membership from a group or whatever their title might be, or their affiliation with a specific building or college or something. And then I can filter just on that group and look at their averages, right? I can look at their number of channel messages, all that stuff, and be able to then repeat that and bring it back. Now, if we had more time, we would dive into how to do all that with Power BI, because that's really the cool way to do it, because any of those data transforms and lookups, all that stuff, Power BI desktop can just magically do all that for you pretty easily. So anybody who is really interested in it, you guys all have access to Power BI desktop for free to use. Now, if you want to create a report or dashboard and share it out to other people, you may need Pro, which is a part of A5 or standalone, and it's you don't have to buy it for everybody. You could buy it for just people in IT staff if you want it, whatever. So most of the time, it's just building it for yourself to look at it, prepare for this project. I just want you guys to know how to do that, because if you're going to do a major initiative, you should be able to determine where am I at, what's my baseline, and then what was my impact, say 30 days after this training. So immediately after, we may see a spike, and then do we have something more than a one-day training? Do we have an ongoing campaign? They emailed them, right? Or I could build a flow that sets up and says people who are a member of this group, when their last activity date is greater than 7 days, I could send them a nudge or a reminder, right? So this is where we get into the automation. Hopefully you guys are starting to get creative juices flowing. How do I use this stuff he's talking about? I could use Flow connected to the graph to check the last activity date. If on Teams, if it's been more than a certain amount of time, I let them know, hey, go do this, right? I want you guys starting to think in those terms of what could I do to really improve all of this, these systems that I have. Okay. So with that, I'm going to step off that for just a little bit. You guys got usage down, right? Is it possible to provide reports by group or by department? Well, pretty much the way I just went through, actually. Sorry, I didn't see that sooner, Christopher, but you were definitely on the right path of where I was going. So hopefully you understood what I was suggesting there. And if not, we'll just have to make that a part of the automation series coming up, right? I have no problem with that. That may have to be a soon topic. How do we tie all these things together, like I always suggested my teachers do, right? I always wanted all of my core teachers, and especially in 5th through 8th grade, to work together on projects that spanned across. We had some really cool stuff that came out of that. Anyway, high horse over, back to Teams. So here we go. What I want to show you guys is a couple of quick things that I will put together for you. Sorry if I go to Teams and I go to the team that we're in right now. And we go take a look at this resources tab. I can't remember who did this. One of you guys stuck around in the meeting when Jody and I were actually troubleshooting all that Teams access before. And I apologize, I can't remember who did this for me, but they moved all of these recordings, links to them into here. Now I came in and kind of cleaned them up and added the actual playlist. I'll create a new one for this Teams adoption series as well, but I also take the resources that I put in, like for that we're going to talk about next, I'll have them in here as well. You guys will all find them in the meeting invite that got you into this meeting in the first place, but I will be adding all of those resources here under the resources channel in the wiki tab, right? You'll be able to get to that. So in the meantime, that's all here under community call in the meeting that we're in right now. If you open up the meeting details, you're going to find a whole slew of these links that are in here. I'm going to go through what these are. I don't know, like, show of hands in the iron window. How many people remember Dominic Williamson? He's the Australian dude, the young guy that I brought in to office hours to kind of talk about how Teams and stuff works. He came in once before, and he's been out to some of your different universities and stuff. He covers just higher ed, but he is what we call a customer facing product manager, or a CPM. So he's part of the actual Teams product group, but his job is to interface directly with certain customers. Sort of, there's a small group, and he covers all of the UK as well as the territory that I'm in South Central US. But he created this amazing resource for you guys called Teams University. And so you're all going to want to check it out for sure. We're not going to spend a bunch of time today going through it. It will be one of our deep dives in the very near future. So I'm telling you, my colleagues don't know about it. Only the people in South Central. We're kind of beta testing this for them. You guys just got early access to it. So I am looking for actual feedback on this entire thing. And trust me, even if you're in a K-12, come look at this. This is not, there is some stuff for IT pros, but this is really around instructors, students, and researchers, and how do you drive their interest, their adoption, and you can dive into any one of these, let's say instructors, right? So who are my professors, whatever. I come into here and it takes me through, it uses videos to tell stories. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but adults are the worst readers ever. I send you guys links all the time. You don't freaking read them. I also find that I don't read as much as I should. I watch more videos than anything. I'm what they call an instant YouTube expert. I'm an expert at anything almost instantly after watching a YouTube video, sometimes 5 on any topic. That's kind of what this is about, is how do we help people learn what's the value, what can they do, all those things in Teams right there. So go check that one out for sure. It's aka.ms/Teams University. Office 365 Champions is another one. So this is a group that's inside of Microsoft, and it's actually, you can, once you sign up, then you can end up in a LinkedIn group for all of this. This isn't just Teams. This is the Office 365 Champions. This is where you go find other people, not just in education, but an entire community of people from all over the world whose responsibility it is to work with Office 365. Not so much IT pros, by the way. This is regular people who use it. So all of you qualify in that as well, and that you use Office 365 in your day-to-day job, right? I use Word and PowerPoint probably more than most normal people should, but you know, Outlook, all those things. I use the web versions of them. I love this stuff. I'm passionate about it. This is a great group to go become a part of to start doing some peer networking, especially if you're interested in becoming like an MVP or something like that. You can make some great connections inside of there. And of course, stay up on all the latest training and content that's available to you. Teams implementation guidelines for IT pros. Now, this is for all of you guys, right? This is where we find the adoption pack, all of that. These links are all in there. Those are short links. This is really when you go to docs.microsoft.com and you select Teams, and this is kind of where you end up. I encourage you guys to come here to this adoption and change management. If you have not looked at this, this is extremely detailed. It's fantastic on how do you get started, what do you do. It literally walks you through it. Look, guys, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. See, this sounds very similar to that security adoption roadmap I did, right? They call it 30, 60, 90 days, whatever, but it's crawl, walk, run, phase 1, 2, 3, whatever terminology you want to put, right? That's what this is. So this is how do I get started and get this thing deployed out, my quick start, intro to teams and channels, whatever I need there. But really, these are my individual deep dives into them. So guess what? We'll be taking into some of these in the near future, right? The other things that are in here, Skype to Teams transition materials. If you use Skype for Business in the cloud today, this is for you. This is how do you get started on your Skype for Business to Teams upgrade. And you'll see it take you to success with Teams, which is an IT Pro website for how do I go through all this. This is super project oriented kind of stuff, right? Very technical. How do I actually go from point A to point B? You'll want to start here where it says start here. That's the best place. That's my opinion. So go and check that kind of stuff out. Again, that one is just aka.ms/Skype to Teams. The Teams Toolkit is another one that I just want to, again, my intent here is just to introduce these to you guys. This one is really neat. It's an unusual in that it looks like it's all pure marketing fluff because it is a flip book. Nobody asked me. I'm maybe not the biggest fan of it. Turns out they tell me this thing works great on mobile devices and all of that as well. It has some videos embedded in it as well as a ton of other content. This is a place where all of you might want to go take a look at different things because it starts out at the very basic, what's an introduction to Teams, and then it gets into chat, collaboration, meetings, calling, all that. So for instance, when I click on one of these, it pulls up this document for me that I can then choose to utilize in whatever way to sort of talk to my folks about, right? So just kind of brings that up. I can download that flyer, print it out. That's a great leave behind when you do a training so that people can remember what they saw during the training. And you'll see there are some really cool infographics in here as well. If you're in education, which you are if you're on this call, this is the kind of stuff that people love to see and understand, right? Going through what would a day in the life of the IT manager look like, and then what about a day in the life of somebody in healthcare, for instance, the actual doc or clinician. Some cool things in there. So there's a ton of resources in here, guys. There are 12 pages of all of this, and it gets into some super deep stuff, some high-level videos. But this is a really good resource that I like a lot, and it gives you the stuff you need to drive adoption and the 3 phases of Teams adoptions, right? Start, experiment, scale. That looks similar to what we just saw in that other documentation, right? So start, experiment, scale. So you can see this is a framework that we are consistently introducing to you, hoping that you will actually follow it. You will have far more success if you choose to follow that. If you call me and say, hey, Preston, we need you or other Microsoft resources to help us figure out how to roll out Teams and drive adoption, does anybody want to know what phases we're going to look at? I bet it's start, experiment, and scale, right? So just like the security adoption roadmap, we now have a roadmap we're going to follow. Teams Adoption Hub, and we are nearly done here, guys. So you'll find this is more of the documentation takes you back to that same place as just a shortcut further in. On-demand online training from Microsoft. This is where we get into, okay, I now want to know more about this kind of stuff. This is some new stuff here, by the way, Coffee in the Cloud. I guess this one's been around for a while. This is the YouTube on-demand training that you can go to, which is really very cool. Kind of like a video blog series almost, but it's got trainings, all kinds of stuff. So a good one if you're trying to learn it so that you can teach it to others for sure. The last 2 I'm going to talk about is instructor-led online training. This is what I meant was brand new. So Teams live training. As a matter of fact, the last time I personally clicked this link, it wasn't even here yet. It's so new. So if you didn't know about it, well, then, congratulations. Now you do. Me too. So you can see it is here. And so Teams tips and tricks, manage your upgrade from Skype to Business. So you can now come do instructor-led training. And here is a link to the Teams for Education webinars, specifically the ones that you and your faculty and staff and everybody will be interested in. So you guys should come check all of this out. Again, I don't know if you drill down into it if they're live and ready to go. It looks like they must be. So we'll just keep going here. Last one, and then we're done for this one. Actually, and you guys can go check out Driving Adoption Community. It's another community in tech community. But the adoption certificate is the one I promise you. This is the one that's on edX. That is a course that you can choose to actually get a certificate. So it's free to take this class. Any of you can take this class and pay nothing. If you want a certificate at the end that says, I am a certified Microsoft Service Adoption Specialist, you can pay $99 before you take the class, and then you have a validated certificate, proof of professional development, proof of capabilities and qualifications as well. And you can add it to your LinkedIn profile, the bottom of your email, whatever. So for some of you, I know it's your job to essentially be the champion who's driving things. And so you'll see this ties back into that Office 365 Champions group, but you can take this course online from our Microsoft content developers and PMs and become trained in those phases that I was just talking about, and how you go and implement the workshops and things that it takes to successfully roll this stuff out. I know what you're all thinking. I don't have time for all this, Preston. I'm busy doing stuff already elsewhere. Listen, I understand. I spent a lot of time as the only IT person in the district where I was the IT manager. But I'm going to tell you the same thing that I had to sit and tell my superintendent. I had to tell my school board and everything, which is sometimes you have to stop mopping up the water and go shut off the faucet. If you're having a hard time driving the kind of adoption that you would expect or you want to see, or people are frustrated because they don't understand it, don't know how to use it, in all honesty, it may be well worth your time. You would probably spend far less time going through this training and figuring out how to deploy this stuff right and get it rolled out in successful pilots and then scaling it than you would just throwing it all out there, trying to train people willy-nilly and dealing with all the support tickets, right? This is about how do we do things right? How do we start to refine our skill? How do we become more polished IT admins, or how do we become more polished managers to encourage our people to go through these processes to ensure that they have the necessary skill set and understanding to give us the best possible return on our investment. So I did a lot of preaching right there. I am very passionate and believe a lot in the need to deploy things right the first time. It's very expensive to get it wrong because it lingers sometimes for years because you're not rolling it out properly. No matter where you are in the process, it never hurts to start a intentional adoption rollout. Okay, so preaching over, I'm going to stop the recording and stick around and answer any questions you guys might have. Thanks. I appreciate your time.